Welcome back to the Whatnauts review show number 175. $1.75. That's a lot of them. We're on our way to 200. Yeah, we'll get there one day soon. But welcome back. If you guys did not know, this is our weekly book club style podcast covering all sorts of genres and mediums. There's bound to be something you guys will enjoy. My name is Kyle Springer, and I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how's it going?
It's good. We're recording a little bit later today because I just wanted to get a haircut. I need to feel fresh. I need to feel bouncy.
It feels good to get a good haircut, right? There's something about it. It's one of those things you can do to just like take care of yourself, right? And it's just like, oh man, I needed this. Feels good. Haircuts are a great thing. I do not have a fresh haircut, but I am still trying to get my sleep schedule back on track. I've been awake for about 24 hours straight as of right now.
Why? So, you don't podcast under that condition.
Oh, Melissa, I'm podcasting under that condition. Here we go. So yeah, I mentioned to you on Friday on the Captain's Log, one of our podcasts that we do here at the Whatnauts, and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get my sleep schedule back on track. I'm almost there. And Friday night was meant to be the night that I made the breakthrough, and it went to hell. It did not go well. I was about to fall asleep, and then I was like, all right, this is it. I can finally sleep. And I got up to use the bathroom, and like as I was like walking around and stuff, I guess that just like got my blood pumping or something, and it woke me up, and I was up till like 5 in the morning. That was mistake number 1. And then mistake number 2 was that my alarm was set for like 10:45, and the plan was to get out of the house, go to the comic book store, just be out and do stuff. And I turned my alarm off and went right back to sleep. And I slept for like 6 hours after that. So I got a lot of good rest. But again, it was just like my sleep schedule is fucked. So at that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy a bunch of soda and energy drinks. And I'm going to just like hard reset, just like stay up for as long as I can until the next day, and then hopefully go to bed at a good time. So that's me. That's what I've been up to.
Good luck with that.
Enough of that. Thank you. I'm dead tired, and immediately after this, I'm gonna go hibernate for a month. So sounds good. But enough of that. Melissa, you and I are here to talk about the movie Looper. Looper. I'm excited to talk about this one. This is week 2 in our Shametember series. We started this tradition last year where we each pick something that is on our list of shame. It could be a movie or something that is just like generally accepted in pop culture as like, this is important. You need to see this. Or it can be something that is like maybe more specific to you of like, hey Kyle, you're a big time travel movie fan. How come you haven't seen Looper? And so that is what we ended up watching this week.
And I think it's funny because last year you gave me a list of just big sci-fi movies you hadn't seen, no particular subgenre within sci-fi. And we watched another Bruce Willis movie. We watched The Fifth Element.
We did, yeah.
God, we've watched now we've watched 5 Bruce Willis movies over the last year. Because we also covered the Unbreakable trilogy in like November.
That's right. Wow. A lot of Bruce Willis.
He watches over us.
It's all just one big loop, one big Bruce Willis loop here. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I had never seen Looper before, and I had heard really really good things, that it was just a great movie in general.
Yeah.
But it's also a time travel movie, and that it was a very very good one. And I don't know why. I don't know. Like, so this came out in 2012. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know what the hell I was up to in 2012, because it wasn't watching this. But had you seen this movie before?
Yeah. I did rent this, I think, around when it came out. I
Okay,
liked it. Yeah, and watching it again, there were so many things that I forgot were part of the story. Like, I remember that I enjoyed it, but I remembered like only 30% of what happened.
interesting. Okay, it doesn't necessarily seem like a movie that repeat viewings will like help you find newer, better details and stuff like that. I feel like you're pretty solid just having watched it once, but I feel like despite that, it's still rewatchable. Like it's a
Yeah.
good movie, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's rich with a lot of details. There's a lot of different
yeah,
things you can focus on. But yeah, the time travel itself is not excessively twisty. Like, you pretty much do get it the first time you watch the movie.
yeah, yeah. To be honest, I would kind of say that the time travel side of this is kind of just in the background. Like, it's a
Yeah.
thing that exists, but that's not really what the movie is about per se.
Mm.
And it's not about them time traveling back and forth and this and that. But it's yeah, it's we'll explain the plot in a sec here, but yeah, I really really enjoyed this. I was kind of kicking myself of like, man, I really did mess up by not watching this
Yeah.
sooner.
This is such a Kyle movie. I forgot how
It
much of
really
a
is.
crime and neo noir story it is. You love that.
Absolutely. I was watching this and just being like, man, this is like the perfect movie for me. This is great. I love it.
Mm.
So yeah, I had a blast watching this one. Let's see. I guess basic synopsis
Uh-huh.
of this is that in the future, time travel exists, but it has been outlawed. And so the only people that are using it are basically criminals, the ones that can afford it, and the ones
Outlaws.
that
Yes.
know how to get it on the back channels, black markets, the stuff like that.
Mm.
And it seems like the main way most people are using it is to dispose of bodies. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
guess dispose of people that they want to kill. And the way they
Yeah.
do that is to send them back in the past 30 years, where they've set up an organization of, I guess you could say, like hitmen, that
Yeah.
they call loopers. And they're the ones that will be like, hey, be there at this certain spot at this certain time, ready with your gun, because some guy will just pop out of nowhere and then bang, he gets shot and killed, and then they have to dispose of the body, thus leaving no evidence. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the basic setup, but then the actual like action of the movie kind of starts when Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character meets his older self. His older self is sent back in time, and
Yeah. There's the loopers will eventually have to kill themselves when their organizers decide to close out their contracts. They send their own body back, and like
mhm,
the body shows up. Well, the person shows up. They've got a bag on your head. You know, they pop back
tied
30
up.
years in the
Yeah,
past. You just shoot them immediately. And then they've got like a package of like silver bars on their body, and that's your payment for the hit job. If you like open their jacket up and you find a package of gold bars, you
that
realize
means
that
you're
was
done.
you. You
Yeah,
killed yourself from the future. You are now retired. This is your goal, to like live out the rest of life, but you know your life is it's 30 years from that date. Like, you know exactly how and when you're going out.
Exactly. So the thing that's different with this one, though, is that when the older version of Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, played by Bruce Willis.
Also, his name is just Joe.
Hey there, Joe Schmo.
You can just say Joe. It counts as both actor and character.
When old Joe pops up, he's not tied up and he has no mask on his face. So immediately young Joe is like, oh shit, something's up. And it seems like Bruce Willis is up to something. Good old Joe is up to something. And so they're trying to figure out what it is, how to stop him, how to capture him. Because if you let your older self go, that's also a violation. And stuff like that. And young Joe didn't let him go on purpose, but it still has to be like, oh shit, I have to go get my older self and be like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, and old Joe is on this search for, in the future he comes from, there's this terrible, like, terrorist, just this guy trying to take over the entire world. He's taking control of all these different criminal syndicates. And he's known only as the Rainmaker. Nobody knows hardly anything about him. But old Joe's got a couple pieces of evidence that could lead him to where child Rainmaker is, the kid that will grow up to be this terror. And he's out there trying to find that kid as still a kid and kill him. And young Joe is on his tail trying to stop him from just killing an innocent kid whose life still has a chance to turn out differently.
There you go. That's actually most of the movie. It's complicated because of time travel and having to explain the setup of how the world works. But when you get down to it, it's a pretty simple, straightforward movie. And I think this is a blast. If you have not seen it yet, please go check it out because it is well worth your time, I believe. Melissa, do you have final thoughts you want to say for spoiler-free stuff? Something we
it also
we
features
missed?
Emily Blunt and a cornfield. Those are also important parts of the movie we haven't mentioned yet. Emily and corn.
Last but not least, this was directed by Rian Johnson. So
wait a minute, it's not even a cornfield. It's like cane. She grows like sugar cane or something. But it's, like it's a plant field. You get the energy of it.
Big old field.
It's corn energy.
Field of dreams. Yeah. So that's about it. That for all of the spoiler-free plot synopsis stuff that we will touch on now, which means let's go into a little bit of housekeeping, and then when we come back, we'll get into our spoiler-filled thoughts and discussion after that. We will be right back. We put a lot of hard work into the shows that we make, and yes, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and we'd love it if you would check them all out. You can find out more information on our website at thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in the Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. If you want to support what we do here at The Whatnauts, patreon.com/The Whatnauts is the best place to do that. You can support us for as little as $1 a month. You can get all kinds of exclusive content at the $3 tier. You can also get a shout out and thank you on all of our shows at the $5 tier. You can support us on Twitch by subscribing to our channel at twitch.tv/The Whatnauts, and we would love to have you all join us for our live streams and talk with us in the chat. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug or something else, go to thewhatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. And we are back. A big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier and above. So thank you so much to Sam. We appreciate you.
Sam.
We love you a lot. It means a lot that you have been supporting us for so long. So thank you. Cool things that we've been doing here at the Whatnauts. We are still chugging along on our reactions to Marvel's What If.
Yeah.
That is going up every Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that. The Captain's Log, if everything goes according to plan, I think we're going to have a special guest on this next week. So keep an eye out for that as well. And I think Crossplay, our video game podcast, was a lot of fun this week. I got to talk about Deathloop, which is a game that I've been playing right now. So if you're a fan of time travel and you like time loops and stuff like that, yeah, more time loops in Deathloop.
I'm just a big fan of circles.
I just like circles. It's great. Yeah, so go check all of that stuff out. But without further ado, let's get into our spoiler zone. There we are. Spoiler-filled discussion starts now. I don't believe I've seen Jeff Daniels in very many roles. I've seen him in a number of things. I'm happy
we're starting with Jeff Daniels. This is a good place to start.
Right, yeah. He's in this movie too, and of course, being a 90s kid, I immediately recognize him from Dumb and Dumber. I know I've seen him in like more in more dramatic roles.
Yeah,
but it's always so weird for me to see him in that stuff because like I know him from Dumb and Dumber.
See, I've never seen Dumb and Dumber, and as a kid,
Ow.
I don't know. I like, and I hardly saw Jeff Daniels in anything. And whenever I did see him, like I thought he was Dave Coulier, and I couldn't understand that he wasn't. You know, when you're really little and like there's two people who like kind of look alike, and your brain just isn't that good at differentiating things yet, and you're like, you just keep hitting a wall. Like there were these two boys who lived across the street from me, and they were like 3 years apart or whatever, and they're brothers, so they kind of look alike. But like I could not tell the two of them apart remotely, even though there's like one of them's much taller. They do have differences. Like
They're
I just
not
couldn't.
Twins,
right? Like I did. So I've never really understood Jeff Daniels as anything other than like an aberration in the universe until recently.
Jeff Daniels, the Enigma.
There's many actors that have frustrated me because I think they're supposed to be somebody else, and you know, as I go beyond being a child whose brain is still forming in her head physically, I can understand Jeff Daniels better. He's in the movie Pleasantville. I watched Pleasantville earlier this year, right when WandaVision was starting. He has a great performance in that as a sad diner owner.
Good actor, yeah.
Yeah. I was happy to see him again. I forgot he was in this. I think in 2012, I knew he was a separate person from Dave Coulier, but I still didn't have anything else to like hang my Jeff Daniels hat on. I like his energy. I like that he's like the one guy from the future who's sent back to stay there and like set up this, you know, this conglomeration of looper hitmen that the future people are going to use.
Yeah.
And he's from the future and he goes back in the past and he's so upset that the past is not futuristic enough yet. Like he looks at Joe, who's just wearing like leather jacket, skinny tie. He's got kind of a throwback vintage look. And Jeff Daniels is so exasperated. Like, you don't want to wear anything that's like translucent plastic. Really? You don't want to start thinking futuristically? I think you should.
He's like, what's up with your ties? Who wears ties?
Why do you still wear a tie? Come on. And I like that he's got this big beard and these sort of like long like robes, sort of. He reminded me a lot of Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy. Interesting.
It's
a good role to be in.
Yeah, so Jeff Daniels plays a character named Abe, who, as you just mentioned, is the one that kind of sets up this network of loopers in the past. But he is the one that has recruited Joe specifically. He was the one that brought him in when he was when he was younger. I almost didn't say the J in there. I was like, yeah, younger. When he was
Younger.
younger. Yeah. But I liked his character a lot.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't see him in very many dramatic roles, but that's my own fault. But I was impressed. I was like, wow, he's like, this is not the performance I expected from him, but he's knocking it out of the park. It was wonderful. So kudos to Jeff Daniels in that small role that he had there. But let's see. Besides him, where should we start?
What did you think about the futurescape of this world as a whole? Because they have time travel, yes, but they also have like 10% of the population is lightly telekinetic. Like they can just make small objects float. And also it seems like there are like hover vehicles. Like there's some light general futuristic window dressing in the background that like isn't particularly used for anything. It's just there to sort of set an atmosphere, set a scene. Was that too much future stuff for you? Was that good? How'd you feel about this world we were in?
To be honest, I feel like it was kind of a good balance. To be honest, I thought just the way society was, at least in that city they were in, was pretty bleak, which is not really fun, right? But
no, there's a big problem with homelessness and vagrancy. Like when we meet Emily Blunt on her farm, she talks about how many different vagrants have been trying to like live in her field. She's had to chase them off the property. It is a sad future, but I do appreciate that they picked like one dystopian element. Like there wasn't also like a war and the sun is burning out. They're like, well, there's a homeless problem. It's very large. It's a bad deal, but that's the one, thing we'll put in the story. There's not too many things in the mix.
Yeah, the city just seems like crime ridden, and it makes it seem very bleak. But in terms of technology, it's not too far off. Yeah, they have some hover bikes, but they seem few and far between, right? They do have some of those big like TV screen style billboards you might see in like Blade Runner or some cyberpunk something, but it's not Blade Runner in the sense that there's neon everywhere, or it's these like crowded, bizarre streets, right? That's not like a big market that you might see in like the seedy underbelly of some futuristic town. It was this good kind of middle point that I was like, that seems believable. Like it seems like I think it was in the year like 2070 something. That's like I could see by then maybe they have more like TV billboards and maybe some hovering vehicles, but they're still not super widespread yet. But yeah, I enjoyed that. But again, I think that, as well as the time travel, was just kind of in the background of this movie. I don't know about how you felt. When I got done with this, I actually felt this movie was more of a Western than it was a sci-fi. I mean, it's sci-fi, but it felt it had this spirit, I think, of a Western.
Yeah, and like you've got you're out in this rustic field, and like you can see these tall, like futuristic skyscrapers, like hazy in the background. Like she's on the outskirts of this city, like some of the first rural properties you get to when you're leaving a city. You can see it back there. But yeah, you're in a historic house. Like once you're on Emily Blunt's property, like there's nothing that really tells you it's the year 2070. Except for that there is a time travel threat that is coming for them.
Yeah.
And and she's just this woman. She's got a strong Southern accent, and she's out there with her just old-fashioned shotgun, not even like a future space gun, and just protecting her property and her son. And then this stranger wanders in. She has to nurse him back to health, and and then Garrett Dillahunt comes in. He's got like a hired goon, which he is, but you could pick up his character and place him in a Western very easily.
Yeah, and that's kind of what those gunmen felt like, or these lopers felt like. They were hired guns. They were outlaws. You can see how some of them might look the part of sheriff, but maybe didn't act the part of sheriff.
Yeah.
Or at least when they were on the job, on a case, maybe they tried to act like that, like, hey, I'm the one in charge here, but they weren't necessarily. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is about these two outlaws having a gunfight, basically, right? And hunting one another down, which is very much a Western story. Like, that is something you would see in like a Clint Eastwood, John Wayne movie.
Yeah. And that threat of a guy is coming. Like, just like one man who has a gun who will shoot us is a real Western thing. And it's got a definite vibe of its own, as apart from like a serial killer we're like, it's one man with a gun, nothing supernatural about him. He's not monstrous, he's not villainous, and he's there with justice, and he's going to come during the day. Setting things just in broad daylight helps make it feel like a Western.
Yeah, which I think that is maybe one of my favorite parts of this movie, is that it feels like that. Because I think it's a one thing to be like, yeah, we're gonna make like a crime, like a sci-fi crime noir. It's like, okay, that sounds fantastic. But then if you like just change that one thing of like, but in spirit, it's gonna be a Western. It's like, ooh, now that's interesting. How does that work there?
Like it's got a lot of visual noir stylings, particularly at the beginning when Joe is in the city, and like he's got like that secret stash of silver like hidden under his floorboards. He's got that one club he goes to where he engages in sex with that one dancer there. It seems like she may
drugs
be
and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, I like the drugs in this movie too. Like, they're all like from a dropper that you put in your eye, which is very distinctive. Like, and we never get a name for the drug. We don't really know like how addictive is it? What are the after? Why do you take it? How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel when you're off of it? We don't need it. We don't need any of it. We just need to see a drug in a way that feels futuristic. That's it. And we just know that we just know that he parties hard, and he parties hard future style. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that, but I think my next favorite thing was the kid.
This is a great kid.
What is this kid's name? I have it pulled up here, kind of.
The character's name is Sid. Little Sid.
Yeah. Pierce Gagnon is the actor's name. Bravo to you, Pierce.
Yeah.
If you ever listened to this podcast in your lifetime, bravo. This was an amazing performance by you. I think maybe one of the best like child actor performances.
Yeah.
He's so young in this. Like, good God. How old is he
like
in
5,
this?
Yeah. He's very little.
Phenomenal. He's phenomenal. Yeah. So we mentioned the plot is that old Joe is sent back into the past to he sends himself back into the past to hunt down the Rainmaker when he's a child and kill this child. He's narrowed it down to it's one of these 3 children, but he's not sure which One.
Because somebody, like, nobody knows anything about the Rainmaker in the future. Like, nobody's even seen him, but somebody got a hold of, like, one piece of personal data about the guy, which is this code of numbers. We find out that it is his birthday and, like, the medical billing code of the hospital where he was born. Something. So, and I think they're, like, not even sure if it is a guy. Like, I think they use he pronouns for the Rainmaker, but they're like, wait, we can't be entirely sure. This person's a very vague identity. They're mostly a menace. It's like it could be any three of these children.
Spider-Man. He's a menace.
You're born in that hospital on that day.
Yeah. So he goes to the first two of them, trying to figure out, is it these kids there? And he narrows it down. He doesn't take any chances, and old Joe ends up killing these kids.
Right, because there's nothing to narrow down. Like, there's no way to piece out which one of these, like, little kids is going to grow up to be the Rainmaker. Like, what clues are you looking for? So he has to just go through and kill all of them.
Take them off the chessboard. Yeah. And we'll circle back around that when we talk more about Bruce Willis. But yeah, they finally get to this third kid. This is the one that younger Joe goes to first, because he's like stolen part of the information. So he knows, like, oh, I'll go to that one first. And yeah, this is where we meet this kid. And he is sharp as a tack. He is like the most educated kid. He's like working on circuits and things like that. He knows how to make communicators. He's so emotionally and mentally smart. And it's like, wow, this kid, man, like wow.
Yeah. This kid is intimidatingly frighteningly smart. Like, you know that this kid, and Joe gets this sense very quickly of, oh, I've found the one. This kid is the Rainmaker. He's a genius beyond his years, and he's got this intensity to him. Like Joe finds out that he's there with Emily Blunt, who is his biological mother, but she was sort of, I don't know, like she loved to party. She lived her life in the city, and she had the sister who lived out here on the farm, left the kid, for her sister to raise. And then the sister died when the kid, when Sid was like 2 years old. And then she came back and she's like, I abandoned him. How could I have done that? I'm going to stick with him for the rest of his life now. I'm going to completely devote myself to raising this kid. I am putting the past behind me. It's like Joe finds out that, the mom died, and he's sort of asking Sid about it. And we don't find out at that point how she died. And Sid's talking about how, like, she died because he wasn't strong enough. And you've got a 5-year-old staring at you very intensely saying, I wasn't strong enough when I was 2. I'm going to be stronger in the future. I'm not going to let anybody get hurt.
Wild, yeah. It's just phenomenal performance. I was blown away.
So intense. God, and like the shot at the end of the movie where Joe is seeing like the future that Sid would have had, the future that led to the world where old Joe is from, where Sid grows up to become the Rainmaker. There's a shot of Sid like riding away from the farmhouse on a train, and he's like bullet has like grazed his face, and he's like, so it's this little kid sitting there holding his like bloody jaw on his face, like huddled against a train car. And he looks like you've seen a normal little kid pout about something, but it's also filled with this like fury. Like, this kid's a Napoleon. He's a force to be reckoned with. He's angry. He is going to literally destroy the world, not just through a temper tantrum. What a look. What a haunting shot that is.
There are adult actors who have been actors their entire lives who don't have a scene as good as that one shot.
Yeah. Yes.
It's wild how good his performance is.
Masterful. And he's got a lot of great scenes with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who also was a child actor. And I imagine that background helped the chemistry between those two.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I'm starting to sound like a broken record saying how much I liked the kid in that. But one of the things that we learn about him is that he is also telekinetic.
Yeah.
But he's like 100 times more powerful than
Oh
everyone
yeah.
else. They can
Yeah.
only like levitate a quarter and like spin it in circles, and that's it.
Yeah.
And he can like lift up the entire house. He can like blow things up. He can like he's so strong, but he can't really control it. When he gets
No.
mad, when he gets upset, he just loses control and bad things happen.
Yeah, and this is part of the movie that I'd completely forgotten about. I remembered the time travel and no other like futuristic sci-fi elements about this
Yeah.
movie. I forgot about the telekinesis. I forgot how his mom died. Because in my head I thought, 'cause he's with this mom, his aunt who he grew up believing was his mom, right?
Mhm.
And then he thinks Emily Blunt, his actual mom, is his aunt. And in my head I thought that like the mom died by like like a husband or a boyfriend who was abusing her, or like there was a robbery at the house, like there
Mhm.
was like an intruder on the farm. I thought it was something like that. That's what I was remembering, which isn't true. It's like when he's saying mom died because I wasn't strong enough, I was like extra extra frightened. Like this boy was like, even at 2 years old, I should have been able to stop that large intruder from killing my mother. So I was living under like a very different sort of story for a while until Emily Blunt reveals that like this is, I forget her character's name. We just keep calling her
I'll
Emily.
look her up. You can keep talking.
Yeah. But like she reveals that like these psychic outbursts that he has, that's what killed the mom. Like she said, he didn't know
Mhm.
what he was doing. He was like just climbing a bookshelf and it fell over on top of him. And he was so like hurt and shocked that he just lashed out and just the psychic force killed her.
Yeah. Uh, her character's name is Sarah. The
Okay.
mom's
Yes.
name. Yeah.
Right. Because the kid doesn't call her mom until like the
Calls her
very end. He
Sarah.
always
Yeah.
calls her Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So that's how his aunt died. That's how other people die in this movie. The kid loses control. Um. Yeah, it's wild to see him go through all of that, to see him talk about it, to react to it and stuff like that. He's so smart, but he's still naive because he's a
Yeah.
child, right?
Yeah, and like we mentioned that he believes that his aunt was his mom, and and Emily Blunt comes back to talk, Sarah comes back to care for him, to raise him. He thinks she's acting like my mom. She's not really my mom because he doesn't remember back to her. He only remembers back to the sister who owned the farmhouse to begin with. And so he keeps calling her a liar. And like there's a scene where he lashes out at her and keeps screaming at her, "You're a liar, you're a liar, you're not supposed to lie." And she gets so scared that she goes and hides in like a gun safe in her
Yeah.
closet. It's scary. But yeah, the fact, and like, accusing somebody of lying is both like such a strongly principled thing for a young person to have, but also echoes things that perturb young children. Like they don't like
Right.
fibs, they don't like tattletales. They want everybody to be like,
Don't break a
telling the truth
promise.
and behaving
Yeah.
themselves and being good. Yeah. So to take uh something that like a little kid would be upset over, that an authority figure isn't being honest with them, but like blowing it up into this like principled like rage, this rant, this tirade against her. Yeah, I think this movie does a great job of illustrating how this is one little kid who has this naivete, who has this innocence, who has some sincere like care in his heart. He can be
Mhm.
very sweet, but also has this rig- rigidity to him, right? This like unbreakable core that wants to just demolish things that he
The
doesn't
world
see are
has to
good.
be the way that he
Yes,
sees
yeah,
things, which
yeah.
is why knowing what he will eventually become as the Rainmaker, you can see, oh, yes, he had a very specific goal, a very specific vision, and he is acting that out. Because they said he was doing mass killings, not like not one by one, but just like in mass. Like, here you go, we're wiping them all out right now.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. I think someone described it as like a holy war is like what it felt like. But yeah, so scary stuff with that. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about young Joe right now, because he's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, especially when he's still really young in this film, and like he's good looking, he's charming, but he has this. Like, I don't picture Joseph Gordon-Levitt like as a bad boy or anything like that, right? Like
No,
but he
that's
has
true.
this like
Yeah.
he has this hardness to this character that I find believable. Like he's not like a gangster or something like that, but he has this like sharpness to him that makes him dangerous.
Yeah, he's a man who can play weathered very easily. He's a man who can play like experienced in something. I think about him in Inception, where you can tell like, oh, this guy's done this thing over and over again. He's an expert at what he does, and he's going to do whatever it takes to like get in, do the job as cleanly as possible, and get back out.
Yeah, he's very perceptive too. That was one of the things that I noticed at the start, because before you really know what's going on or what's happening, and they're explaining how like people will get their loops closed and stuff like that, it keeps showing him in this club looking at the like higher ups being like, we closed another loop, and they're taking shots and stuff, and he's just kind of side-eyeing them, being like, what are these guys up to? It seems like there's more of these than usual. They're closing a lot of loops. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like he's taking mental notes, and he's trying to figure out, is there some kind of what's going on? What's happening here? And he doesn't really know, so he's still kind of going along with it, but he's cautious.
Yeah, and a lot of his cohorts celebrate when their loop is closed, because that is a retirement point for them. You know, they kill their future self, they get all those bars of gold, and then nothing is asked of them again. They just know
party
when their death is coming, right? And they party, they live it up on all the silver and gold they've earned. You can tell that he takes that more seriously. Like, his loop is closed under troubling circumstances. Well, we see this, like, we see that his story going forward from the time when Bruce Willis arrives and he's not able to kill him, the old Joe escapes. But then we also see the timeline that Bruce Willis came from, where young Joe successfully executed old Joe, no problem, took his bars of gold, and they went forward and like lived this future. That was also like less partying than anybody else. Like, he still parties, he lives it up for a long time until he finds, the woman who becomes his wife, and he does settle down with her. But he's doing it with a bit more gravity, with a bit more consideration to it. He's a lot more purposeful than his friends are.
Exactly. And I think, to be honest, I feel like his plan all along was to like, hey, once I have enough money and I have the right reason to go, I'm gone, because he's been stockpiling this stuff. So I felt like he was always trying to find an escape somehow to get out of, like, I don't want them to close my loop, so I'm just going to keep doing this as long as I can. Uh, however long they need me until I find that right reason. And
Yeah.
then he meets this woman and they have this brief interaction where she rejects him, but he like you
Yeah.
can see it on his face immediately. He's just like, that's the one.
Yeah.
um,
Let me try this again.
yeah. And yeah, so I that's when we kind of get this plan of like, okay, I'm gonna marry her, I'm gonna settle down with her, we're gonna get out of here, we're gonna escape, we're gonna go uh, to Paris or wherever they were planning on going. Um,
I was reading some IMDb trivia about this movie because I was curious about the background of it and how it,
sure.
how the whole thing was technically put together. And throughout the movie, he's learning French, and he says that it's his goal to go to France. He wants to go to Paris after his loop is closed and he retires. And then Jeff Daniels is like, "You should go to China. Trust me, I'm from the future, and I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen, but don't go to France, go to China." And I was reading that was because they'd always planned it to be France, but they found that filming in France was too expensive. But the Chinese distributor of the film said, "Hey, if you switch the setting, I'll pay for that filming.
Interesting.
I'll pay for you to go film in Shanghai or Hong Kong." I forget where he ends up.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. But so it just seems like he's looking for an escape, which I
Mm,
think you can also see paralleled in the way that he consistently takes these drugs and hooks up with this one dancer,
mm,
and just doesn't really have a purpose beyond that. He just looks like he's trying to escape.
mm,
Um, but there's still, despite all that, there's still something that I think is heroic inside him. Like he
mm.
is very much the protagonist as well as the antagonist of this film, thanks to time travel. Um,
Yeah.
but he like it ends up kind of being two different versions of himself, and the younger one does end up kind of taking this path that is maybe more heroic, more like, hey,
Mm,
I mean, we see him defend Sarah, right, and like step in front of her as this mystery person is like stepping out of the
yeah.
cornfield and stuff. They find out it's not a threat, but still, like he wants to defend her. He wants to take care
Yeah.
of her, which is the honorable thing to do, right? And then at the end, we see him kind of solve this whole thing by
Yeah.
sacrificing himself. He
Mm,
basically commits suicide so that
yeah.
there is no older self that has to come back and do all of that stuff. So um, he ends up taking a very, very different path than old
Mm.
Joe.
Yeah, yeah. The ending of this movie is very powerful, where he says that old Joe, in trying to prevent the Rainmaker from growing up to be the Rainmaker, creates his own enemy, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they said that in the future, some of the few rumors that are passed around the Rainmaker are, they say he had to watch his own mother die when he was a kid. And they say he has like a ceramic jaw implant or
Yeah.
something.
Because he got
And we see,
grazed with a bullet.
yeah, and we see old Joe like attempt to shoot Sarah, and instead he grazes the kid's face. Yeah, so young Joe realizes that this is a loop that will continue over and over and over again until something stops it. So yeah, he just turns his blunderbuss around on himself. It's always full of guns, but I don't think they're ever once called gun. Like
Yeah.
we'll use every other slang term for gun.
Blunderbust. Gat.
Yeah.
Gat's
Yeah.
a good one. The
Which both
Gat
feel
Man.
like they're from like such different times.
They really do. Yeah. Um. Yeah. It's like you said, the end of this is very powerful for a number of things, right? We mentioned the
Yeah.
one scene with the kid when we get to see like, hey, yeah, this is a loop that will continue. Here's how it starts, as well as the sacrifice that young Joe makes, which on one
Yeah.
hand is kind of heroic, but on the other hand is also very tragic, right? Because he's
Yeah.
taking his own
Mhm.
life. He won't get to be with Sarah or this wife that he might potentially meet in China or
Yeah.
stuff like that. He won't get to escape. Um, I guess this is some sort of escape
Mhm.
from the whole thing, but not the one he intended.
Yeah.
So it is tragic in that sense. But yeah, he's a good character. I like him a lot. Uh, just
Did
his
you
sheer force of determination is just
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I like this guy. I like this guy.
Did you buy Joseph Gordon-Levitt growing up and turning into Bruce Willis?
Uh, n- no, yes and
Right?
no.
They don't they're not two actors who look the most alike. Like that's not the most obvious pair of people you could find. There's worse ones. I think a lot about that movie
Yeah.
17 again, where Matthew Perry travels back in time to his young body, which was Zac Efron. I don't buy that one at all. But I like that this movie's trying to close that gap. Bruce Willis doesn't have to do anything. But like Joseph Gordon-Levitt is very intently trying to play somebody who could grow up and turn into Bruce Willis. And I think I'm not exactly sure what all of it is. Yeah, it's some makeup. And I know he's an actor who studies and trains very seriously when he needs to emulate somebody for like he's been in biopics before, in this movie where he's asked to be the younger version of an older actor. I think he studies them, really tries to play that closely. So his performance lives up to it. I think he just looks funny in sunlight. And like when you see him in like the darkness of one of his clubs, it's like, yeah, he kind of looks like a young Bruce Willis. But just when you see him out in the field, it's like, why are your eyebrows so dark? Bruce Willis doesn't have eyebrows like that. Why is that part of it?
See, it's youth, Melissa, youth.
Yeah, your eyebrows just slowly fade away like ghosts as you age.
Yeah, I did. I tried to watch a YouTube video or two on this. I'm just like, what is the theories on this movie? Is there stuff that I missed and stuff? And there wasn't too much there and stuff like that. But they did mention that Joseph Gordon-Levitt did have a bunch of like makeup and prosthetics on his face that he had to put on each time. But yeah, that he also, to like help him to get Bruce Willis's mannerisms and stuff, he would listen to his movies like in his headphones and stuff like that to like get his talking points, or like the way he spoke, and stuff like that. So he did in fact do that. Or at
I have
least
one more question for you.
According to that YouTube video, I don't know. They could have been like, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt like slept in the same bed as him for a whole month to figure out how he acted. And I would have been like, Melissa, did you know that Joseph Gordon-Levitt
absorbing it through dead skin cells? No, I buy that he just listened to a tape of Hudson Hawk over and over again. Another question. This isn't related to anything. But I think it's funny that in his role in The Dark Knight Rises, somebody tells Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, you should go by your middle name, Robin, the name of a famous Batman ally. When his middle name is that in real life. His middle name's Gordon.
Yeah?
Think about it. I don't know.
Coincidence or conspiracy?
It freaked me out for a couple minutes.
That is funny. But let's move on to old Joe.
Old Joe.
Good old Bruce Willis here. I'm often very indifferent on Bruce Willis. I don't necessarily think he's a phenomenal actor, but he's also not bad.
Yeah, and I know. What did it die? Did it go to sleep? What's it doing?
No, you're still here.
Help.
You're
Okay,
still
good.
here.
Okay. Beans. Okay, come on. Come
We
on.
back up
Okay,
and
there.
running.
I think I'm here. When I had to like plug in the power cord, I think I just bumped the HDMI and it disappeared off my
Okay.
monitor, and I thought we all died. Anyway, I think Bruce Willis is also known to be an actor who has put in less effort in his older and more recent years. He's not always like completely into the role, but I felt like he was into this one.
Yeah, I thought he did pretty good in this one. And I think the one scene that really got me is I don't remember if it was after the first kid he killed or the second one, but it's after he kills one of the kids and he like stumbles out of the house, walks across the street a little ways, and then just breaks
Yeah,
down.
after the first kid. Yeah, like he really
Yeah,
did not want to have to do that. He takes no pleasure in what he does. He's like, I
he
just have
hates it.
to,
Yeah,
if I, yeah, he just thinks about the future where hundreds of people will die, including his own wife, who is killed by the Rainmaker henchmen. And he's like, I have to do anything I can to stop that. Like, this is
yeah.
the worst thing I'm ever going to do now, but I'm going to make a better future for countless people.
Yeah, he's so hurt by the death of his wife that it drives him to do things he normally wouldn't, and those things are, eh, like you said, going to be for a arguably good reason, but
Yeah.
it still just brings him more pain to have to do this. Um, and so yeah, like you can see like when he breaks down, he's so conflicted. Like he's just like I don't want to do this. This sucks. Um, but yeah, he just like that one scene in particular, I think is maybe one of the better acted Bruce Willis scenes that
Yeah.
I've seen. Of just like, man, he nailed that. Like that one scene is like all I need to understand his character.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
good stuff from Bruce Willis there.
And he goes to see the second kid, who is the child of the sex worker he has a relationship with. And I really like the dynamic between those two, between her and young Joe, who we see, her with, where they are not lovers in like an emotional sense. Like there's no romance there, but it's also not just transactional. Like they are friends with each other.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of care there that's never going to grow in anything else, but they do care about each other. So when old Joe goes to see the second kid and realizes that's who the kid's mom is, he is really shaken up about it. He feels very bad. Now he's killing the child of somebody who he has cared for personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if I'm not mistaken, we don't really hear much about Sid's father, do we?
No, yeah, we never find out who it is. And like I said, I'd been remembering an incorrect version of this movie where like the dad killed the mom and Sid just believed he was unable to stop the dad. Oh, yeah,
Gotcha,
the
okay.
dad is a non-player.
We've said that this movie is pretty straightforward when you really think about it, but it leaves every now and then something that is open-ended or like enough to get you to be like, huh, there's some wiggle room here if you really want to theorize and stuff. It's not important per se, but it's just like, yeah, if you want, you can probably come up with something cool. I at one point was thinking, like, what if Joe is the father of the Rainmaker, and
Yeah.
maybe that is how the answer got pregnant, or maybe since we didn't know about Sid's father, maybe somehow, some way, like young Joe was it? I don't know, or just somehow
Yeah, you can imagine Joe and Sarah running in similar party circles, back when she was living in the city. I suppose there's nothing that outright
Yeah.
declines this path of thinking.
Yeah, or like some future version of Joe having known and seen her or saved her in his past, then somehow like goes back to like reconnect with her or something. I don't know. It was one of those things that was like, okay, they leave this open ended enough that if you want to theorize, you can. Everything you're going to theorize is probably wrong, but it's like it's open ended, So
Yeah. I want to talk about one of the most powerful scenes in the movie, which is where one of Joe's buddies is Paul Dano. He's another one of these loopers. And he is sent his own future self. He's there to close his loop, but he hesitates because like when the body just pops into his timeline, the like guy under the burlap sack is like mumbling a song, and Paul Dano's like, I know what that song is. And he's like, I couldn't resist it. I had to take off the hood. I didn't know if that was me or not. And when he does that, old him gets away. And there's a scene where like Abe and his guys capture Paul Dano, not future Paul. I forget the guy's name. He's just old Paul. And they destroy old Paul by destroying young Paul. Like we see this older actor who's like running through the city, trying to escape.
Wild scene.
And he sees scars on his hands. He like looks in a mirror and like his nose is gone. And as he's running,
his
like
fingers start disappearing.
His whole limbs until he's just like a torso that like flops down on a doorstep. And then you see like one of Abe's guys like open the door, and inside in the background you see like Paul Dano hooked up to like a bunch of medical equipment. Like they have been slicing up Paul Dano so that future him will not be able to continue after the number of injuries he has sustained.
Yeah. It was wild. It's horrifying. It's disgusting.
Yeah. And to see like
effective.
all the and like there's no gore in it. All of that's happening to Paul Dano, who we don't really see. We just see him in the background at the end of the sequence.
There wouldn't be gore.
Exactly.
At least on the one that we see.
It's just old injuries, old scarred up injuries just suddenly appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, or
never seen anything quite like it. Yeah, and then I like that Joe remembers this trick, and when he knows old Joe is out there, and he's like, I gotta get in touch with this guy. I gotta figure out like what's his deal, what's he doing? Can I rein him in and be like, hey, okay, I bet that's fun that you had your joyride around town. I do need to kill you. You understand this, right? And so he like carves a message in his arm. And what we saw in old Paul Dano is that he pulled up he saw like an arrow carved on his palm pointing towards his arm. And so he pulls up his wrist and it says, be at like this address. So he goes there thinking like, oh, I'm going to meet my younger self. Maybe he'll help me get out of this. And no, it's Abe and his guys using young Paul Dano as like a lure. And so we see old Joe do the same thing where he pulls up his sleeve and it says be at, and then you can presume that the rest of it is an address. And instead he meets young Joe at this diner where we've seen Joe talk to a waitress named Beatrix. I thought that was a very sharp little turn in the writing. And I also love that old Joe is like, there's other waitresses here. You didn't want to write Jen? I would have remembered who Jen was.
Didn't have to write the whole name Beatrix.
Right.
You could have just done Jen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked that scene a lot. I liked having those two characters meet and interact, and that's when they start, because this movie kind of hand waves away time travel of like, hey, once you start talking about the rules and all that stuff, it's just all mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, and I think that's helped by the fact that time travel is used by one specific community for one specific purpose. Like only the criminal underground has it, and they only use it to send bodies back to a time when nobody would be looking for them. Like nobody's pulling a time heist. They use time travel for this exclusively.
Yeah. But then what they get into is really interesting. It's on the like nature of memory in time travel.
Yes.
Like that there's
Yes.
I think there's a lot of this that is just kind of like unspoken in time travel movies where it makes sense that this is how it would work, but no one talks a bit about it. Like there's no movies where this is the focus, how your memory would work here. And so I really enjoyed the scenes where like they're describing how it works, and like as the like when things are happening and I'm near you, I can remember them crystal clear and I can remember what you do after. But once you start to deviate from that, the stuff that I then remember gets foggier as you start to get away from that and new memories form, and all the like it's still it's wild to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that that's one of old Joe's struggles. Not only is he trying to save his wife in the future, and I don't even know if he plans on a way to get back to the future. Like, nobody in this time period has time travel. They sent Abe back on a one-way ticket. He doesn't have any equipment to get back. I don't think anybody does. So the old Joe is, I suppose he does know he can't go back to his wife, but he just wants to make sure that she would still be alive. And he struggles with, as young Joe's path changes, and as he's on a path that may not lead to him anymore, going to China, meeting his wife, that old Joe has trouble remembering her face.
Right,
and he's like, to try and like calm himself down, he struggles. He's like, remember the day you met her. Remember that. Like he's trying so hard to hold on to that. Yeah.
Because he's really out for revenge, right? Because you said he's not going to go back to the future. So he's trying to set his younger self up to have a life where he doesn't have to do all of that. So he's basically just out for revenge to kill these.
Partially revenge and also
people.
Partially saving people. Yeah, like revenge is like trying to make the scales equal, in your own heart and mind after what's done is done. He's in a place where he can stop what was done from being done.
You're right. Yeah. But yeah, it's
a prevenge mission.
Prevenge. But yeah, like we see him struggling to just try and remember the life he had and try to remember the purpose and the reason he's there. Because young Joe is just like, what if I marry someone else? Like, what if I just choose not to go there and like, hey, there's Sarah right over here.
Yeah, like show me your wife's picture and almost make sure I remember her and don't flirt with her.
Right. Yeah. Like, that's the one. Don't go near her. Yeah, and I like those struggles between that same character, between young and old Joe, right? Just it's a neat thing that I don't think a lot of time travel movies really talk about, except for maybe like overwriting them completely, and that's all they say.
Yeah,
just like, we're gonna overwrite the memories somehow.
I don't think the wife has a name, and I don't think she speaks, which isn't specific to her character. When we go see old Joe's life in the future, like I don't think there's any dialogue. Like it's just a montage with the score played over it, right? And
I think there might be a couple words, but it's nothing of importance.
Or like he narrates something. Yeah, it's largely wordless and largely without detail. And she dies very early on in the movie, but I think it's not your conventional dead wife story, because then he goes back in time and like we just said, like it's not a revenge mission. Even if he changed this, there's no way he could get back to her. Like he's just stopping her from dying. even though he knows I'm never going to see her again. Like, we will never be together. He's not trying to save a relationship. Like, he's not trying to save his wife anymore. He's trying to save, like, that individual woman who is going to be. Like, he's trying to save her life in complete absence of himself.
Yeah. At one point, I will tell you this, I suspected that maybe his wife was the Rainmaker. And that's somehow, I mean, like, she was not supposed to die at that one bit, but whoever the like gunman was just saw something and shot her. But I was like, how like what a cruel turn of fate it would be if he found out the Rainmaker, the one who kind of set all of this up, was his wife, because she seemed very capable too. Like, again, we don't know much about her, but she seemed oddly capable of just like, there's more to her than we are told here.
Like, he meets her in like a bar where like a brawl has just broken out, and he sees her across the room, and she's like rolls her eyes like, I'm out of here. Like, it seems like
she
violence is something she's accustomed to. Yeah, like she just is very comfortable around that world. Yeah, she does seem like a character who could be pulling a string.
Exactly. But that's not what happened. But yeah, I liked the characters that we got. I think they initially conceived this as a short story. To be honest, I would love to see this story expanded further. I think this would make for a great TV show. To develop it into that, like in a similar vein, in the same way that 12 Monkeys was developed into a TV show from a movie, which was also based off of a short story and stuff like that. But I like this world. I want to know more. I want to see more. Who's Abe? I want to know more about Abe. Who is Joe's wife? I want to know more about her.
Right.
Like,
yeah, there are interesting side characters in this. Yeah, and as we get towards the end of our conversation, I just also want to make sure we mention Kid Blue. I think he's pretty entertaining. He's another one of the loopers that Joe knows and works with, and he's like, these are all solo jobs. I think they all just know each other from like having to report in at the same office, and they go party together.
Yeah.
The social structure around loopers is interesting, but I like Kid Blue in that he's just very desperate to look cool and to have Abe's approval.
Yeah. Like, one thing that I think was entirely missing from this movie, not that we needed it, but again, just like I wish this world was expanded so I could learn more about what was happening. How do the police react to all of this? Like, are they investigating this? How much do they know?
Well,
how much do they not know? Do they have like a time cop that they've sent back to set up a network of cops that know about time travel and are looking for certain things? Like, what are they doing?
I think the film makes it seem like law enforcement is unaware of this, at least in the time where young Joe lives. Like, they are sent these bodies and they like dispose of them, like they're burned in an incinerator. And even if any pieces were found, those would be pieces correlating to a person who is either still alive, still walking around alive, or is not born yet.
Yeah, and so they'll just be like, this is weird, whatever, okay.
Yeah.
Unsolved. But yeah, there's just so much more about this that I would like to learn. But I'm also very satisfied. I don't need anything else. The story that they told me and what they gave me, I think, was the best story it could have been. Right? Like, this is. I don't want to say there's no moments that could have been cut out, but it's tightly knit. It's paced very, very well. There's not really a moment that I was like, now, why was that even in there? Right? Like, I felt like each moment at least had a purpose. um, for this film here, and it was very good. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I was very happy to rewatch this, and I did retain a lot more of it this time. I don't feel like I'll forget most of the movie again.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, I think that's about all I have to say on Looper. So I think, Melissa, you and I should do a check-in on a review show bingo.
That's right. Bingo.
Review show bingo. I'm pulling up my bingo card right now.
Yeah.
Let's see here. There is no ghost in this. No one died by electrocution. Everyone had time for breakfast.
Yeah, nobody played themselves. Yeah, I think everything I could have crossed off, I already have. Like, I do have meeting yourself from another time, but Dark gave us that very easily.
Yeah, and I don't have that one on my card, I don't think. No. I don't. The one that's close, but I don't think I would give it to myself, is didn't realize my own strength. But I think the kid very much realizes his own strength and is like, I'm not strong enough to control it. So that is very much aware of your own strength.
Yeah. Like he does purposefully, I think, just squeeze all the blood out of Garrett Dillahunt's body into a blood cloud that floats over his head. That's a wild death scene.
Yeah, that was pretty on purpose. That's kind of about it, though. Oh, well, no. Yeah, this would be a funny one, which is not how we intended this one, but vehicle in peril. I feel like that hover bike with the guy. No, go walk around the hover bike.
Don't scratch my bike.
So close. But
you
not
had a hard time with the
intended
vehicle in peril this year, which is tricky. He's like, I think that one was my idea, but I didn't put it on my card, but you put on yours.
It's a good one. It's one that I feel like you see often enough, but we just haven't picked the right things. We haven't done the right things here on the review show. So I think I am out of luck this week.
Yeah.
Nothing for me.
Man, if we had to get another superhero story in before the end of the year, and that will help us cross some stuff out.
We'll get one in. We'll get one in. I'm sure we will. But that's it for review show bingo. Not much of an update on that one. Melissa, next week is our end of the month special. And we are watching raise your hand.
Where are recommendations, Kyle?
Okay, we'll get Melissa, what do you recommend?
We have a structure, Kyle. Like, if we wrap up our discussion, we do bingo, we do recommendations, we plug, we talk about the next week, we do our pitches. You've been awake for 24 hours. I'll take the steering wheel. If you like Looper, you may also enjoy. There's one of Rian, if not his first movie, then one of his first movies. Rian Johnson did a movie called Brick, also starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I saw once in college. I haven't watched since then. I really want to. I don't know how easy that movie is to find. But you covered this in the original The Whatnauts podcast years ago.
We did. It's available on our website, thewhatnauts.com. You can't really get that on podcast services, but it is available on our website. The movie Brick, it's very, very good. If you like crime noir detective stuff, it's much faster paced than this movie was. And but it's non-stop.
I saw this when I was like 18 or 19. It feels a lifetime ago now. I don't remember much about it, but it is a teen noir story. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing
Set
a
in
high
high school.
schooler.
Yep.
I believe he played so believably. I don't know how old he would have been at that time, but I bought that he was a high schooler, having just been one myself.
I think he
I
was
had
like early 20s, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I watched this in a when you're a freshman in college and you take like a whole course your first semester about like just college, just like being in college, adjusting to it. I was in the honors version of that class, which is a weird class to have an honors level up. And it was taught by this philosophy professor
We'll
who
teach
just
you how
sort
to
of did what she
really
wanted.
adapt to college in this one.
Right.
All those other kids,
And
they're out of luck.
in 1 week, she's like, I just like this movie and I want to make you watch it. So we just watched Brick.
There you go.
But yeah,
Good
it is
stuff.
a teen noir movie where he I think his girlfriend goes missing or like dies from a drug overdose or something, but he's trying to track down who in his high school is passing drugs around. He's trying to track down high school crimes, but in very noir style.
Yeah,
and not in a funny way. This isn't like a genre parody. It is a serious, stark movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that one is very good. That's a good recommendation.
Yeah, watch Brick. This Looper reminds me a lot of Blade Runner 2049. I think just because it's like
Interesting.
Hapless handsome man wanders around the future doing some sort of inscrutable future job.
Okay. Yeah.
Lives in city, very tall city. I would recommend like the first 20 minutes of the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movie. I like the whole movie. I know I like it more than you and more than most other people. But there is a part at the beginning where we see young James Kirk growing up as he does in Iowa, a fellow Midwesterner after my own heart. And he's like stolen his stepdad's car. I forget if it's a real car or if it's a hover car, but he's driving it through a cornfield and you can see one of those like big futuristic skyscraper cities in the background. So if you want like just one more opportunity to see like field and like future cyber city juxtaposed against each other, you can begin to watch Star Trek and hopefully you'd finish watching it. I recommend the experience.
Absolutely. I would recommend, if you want another good time travel movie, go check out Primer, which we have covered here on the review show. I don't remember what number it was off the top of my head.
This was like November 2019, so I don't remember the number, but like that's the time frame where you could find it in. Yeah.
That is a great time travel movie. Very fast paced, very hard hitting, in the same like breakneck speed that movie goes. That's how Brick feels, but it's a crime noir instead. So yeah, go check out Primer. That is also essential time travel movie fan viewing. If you want more Rian Johnson,
No, I just want to say, like, Primer is a very stark, technical movie. It is entirely about the time travel and the complexities and the paradoxes of it, and the characters are barely characters.
Absolutely.
So get ready for an entirely cerebral, charmless experience. But it's charmless on purpose.
It's charming in the way that it's charmless.
It's like, wow, you really went for it, didn't you?
Absolutely. But if you would like to see more stuff that Rian Johnson has made, I would also recommend Knives Out, another crime movie by Rian Johnson that was also very good.
Last year.
That we covered here on the review show as well. I really like Rian Johnson for the most part. I think a lot of the movies he makes are very, very good. It has a very clear vision, and whoever he gets to like chop his films down into like the tight, just that, like they all seem like there's no scene wasted. Whoever they've gotten to do all of that has, for the most part, been thumbs up Except Star Wars.
Yeah.
Don't go watch the Star Wars one he did of that. That was not good.
Watch the Star Wars. The Last Jedi is not so bad that you should just not see it. I like The Last Jedi quite a bit. But also I have no emotional connection to Star Wars. I just think it's shiny. Speaking of knives,
it's a film I think you should watch if you like Star Wars and stuff like that. But compared to Rian Johnson's other films, it's not in the same league. So
I think when The Last Jedi is good, it's very good. But you spoke about how a lot of his films don't have a lot of fat on them. I think The Last Jedi is also a movie that it is the fattest of them.
Maybe.
You get your highs, you got your lows with The Last Jedi. I want to mention just briefly off of Knives Out. We talked about the character Kid Blue. He's played by Noah Sagan. And I'm watching the movie and I'm like, what do I know Noah Sagan from? That name is familiar. I think I might have heard him on a podcast once or twice, but it's not easy for me to find everybody's podcast appearances. So that's still a mystery. But I looked at his IMDb, and of course he has been in most of Rian Johnson's other movies. And he's like the other law enforcement agent in Knives Out who's not Lakeith Stanfield.
Okay. Gotcha,
and I think he's stuck in my head so much just because Knives Out has those like illustrated end credits with like a little portrait of everybody.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like I think that made his name and face feel very significant
out,
to me in my memory. Yeah.
Cool. I like that a lot.
Also, did you know that Noah Sagan was the voice of Henry in Kablam?
I did not know that.
Well, I learned it going down that guy's IMDb trying to figure out why I know him. Co-hosted Kablam.
Good stuff. I think that's about it for recommendations that I got.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about what we're doing in the future here. So next week is our end of the month special. I see, Melissa. I could have said next week is our end of the month special, but before we tell you what that is, let's do our recommendations. Anyways,
why structure it like that?
I don't know. So next week, we are going to be covering season 1 of the HBO show, The Leftovers. Melissa, do you want to let people know a little bit about what this one is?
Yeah, this is our new monthly series. For the next 3 months, we'll be watching seasons 1 through 3 until we complete the show. This came out the last handful of years, sometime in the mid-2010s. Forget exactly when. Co-created by Damon Lindelof, who worked on our beloved Lost, which is one of the things that brought us to this. And it is a show about a day when 2% of the human population just vanishes without a trace. And the show is set 3 years after that, where all of society still has no answers. And it's not really about the mystery of how everybody disappeared and why some people went and some people didn't. The show's mostly about just how society tries to continue after something like that. It's about these crumbling interpersonal relationships, and it's about a lot of the odd beliefs, how people struggle to cope with it. The series features a cult, features various like odd spiritual practices as people trying to figure out how to add meaning to their lives after this terrible tragedy.
On.
Yeah.
So that's what we're gonna be up to next week. We're gonna watch season 1 of The Leftovers. So yeah, get excited about that. I'm excited to start watching that show. But after that, we will officially be into October, which is gonna start our horror month. So, Melissa, I believe you have, some spooky pitches for what we will do that first week in October.
Yeah. So I have 3 international horror movies.
Cool.
And they're all from places where we haven't seen anything before.
Cool.
There were plenty of, even though there were tempting options, I didn't pick anything from France or Japan or South Korea. These are 3 new places. I've got a movie from Spain, one from Iran, and one from Australia. So even if they're all international, one of them is in English. So pitch number 1 is a Spanish horror movie. I think this is on Netflix, or at least it was at the time the article I was reading was written. This is called Veronica, or however you pronounce the name Veronica with a Spanish accent.
Veronica.
Yeah. The description I read in an article, I think I read one from IndieWire, one from Den of Geek. I just went Googling like best international horror movies. I just copy pasted this text. Regrettably, I forgot which article it's from.
Go for it.
Veronica, the new horror movie from Rec director Paco Plaza, has gone viral as one of the scariest offerings currently on Netflix. The film is a fictional account of an alleged true story which occurred in Madrid in 1991, where a young woman died suddenly a few months after using her Ouija board. Some viewers have claimed the film is so scary they turned it off halfway through.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know very little else about it. This is the other two. I kind of had a sense of what I was going to pitch. This one, brand new. Found out about it last night.
I know it by reputation then, because I've at least heard of Rec. Because that's a big name in horror movies, and even someone like me who does not like horror movies and is a big scaredy cat, I've heard of that one. So it's made some waves.
Pitch number 2 is a movie from an Iranian American filmmaker, and this is called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. This is from 2014. This article said Iranian American filmmaker Ana Lily Amirpour made a stunning debut with this black and white vampire spaghetti western in which a young skateboarding female vampire entwines herself in the lives of the dissolute inhabitants of the Iranian ghost town Bad City. Surreal and dreamlike, yet laced with a sharp wit and original imagery, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night remains a brilliant example of just how all-encompassing, both stylistically and culturally, the horror genre can be. I've seen videos about this movie. It is black and white, with a spaghetti western vibe to it, and entirely about vampires and set in some amorphous Iranian city.
That sounds fascinating.
It seems like a wild time. Yeah, and this one seems like it's the lightest of these 3 movies that we have to choose from. And pitch number 3 is an Australian movie from 2008 called Lake Mungo. And this is a movie that is a mockumentary, but, not full of jokes. It isn't like Spinal Tap. It is just a false documentary.
Found footage stuff.
Yeah, the movie implies mockumentary-style storytelling with found footage and docufiction elements, using actor interviewees to present the narrative of a family trying to come to terms with the drowning death of their daughter and the potentially supernatural events they experience after it. So within the narrative of this movie, this family is a daughter. She drowns, and after that, they think they may have seen her ghost. And they have a paranormal investigator come over to the house and test that out. And they end up digging deeper into their daughter's life and all the things they didn't know about it. Under this mystery of, have we truly seen a ghost or not?
Okay.
And it's a mockumentary style. Yeah, very interesting. I think this is also supposed to be very chilling. I've been intrigued by this one for a while.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So, pitch number 1, Veronica. Pitch number 2, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Or pitch number 3, Lake Mungo.
Man, each one you mentioned, I was like, that's gonna be the one, and then you would do the next one and be like, oh no, that's gonna be the one. Right. The next one, oh no, that's gonna be.
There's so much to choose from. I almost put The Wailing in here, which is a South Korean film that sounded really interesting, but I thought, we watched something from South Korea earlier this year, and also it was about a police officer in a small town contends with, and we've done a lot of police officer in a small town
contends with. Yeah,
that's what The Leftovers is. So maybe we'll do that one next year.
That's fine. That's fine. I think I'm actually gonna go with Lake Mungo.
Okay.
Yeah, that one has the funny sounding name, so it's memorable. But the it's interesting because the mockumentary style makes it seem like it would be less scary, but I know that's probably not the case, especially with all this found footage. But what I'm actually interested in is this idea of like exploring a person's life after they've passed away and like finding out things you didn't know about them. A long time ago, it must have been on the review show. On the Whatnauts podcast, or like the original version of this. Paul and I watched 6 Feet Under. Is that the name of the show?
Yeah.
The HBO show. And season 1 started to do something that I found fascinating, and then they left it after that. And I was just like, oh, come on, that was the best part of the film, where the father in that show, this is how it all starts, so it's not all spoilers, but the father in that show passes away, and they have to prepare like his funeral and figure out all of his stuff, and do we need to talk to people, and all that stuff. And yeah, they end up like discovering he had like this secret room that he rented atop of this bar where he had like a workspace and stuff like that. And I thought that stuff was fascinating, just to be like, here's this family that claimed to be so tight-knit that just they still have their secrets and stuff like that. So that was neat, and I think that's why I want to pick Lake Mungo.
Okay. I think you can watch this for free on Tubi. I hope you're able to find a commercial-free option.
We'll figure it out.
I had to watch Aliens last week on some platform with commercials, and I'm like, this... I forget that this is not good.
Not being into the spooky, horror, scary stuff, commercials might be good.
It works for some movies, but for a more tense movie, I'm like, I know this is undercutting my experience.
I need a break. Maybe I need to be like, oh, okay, a commercial for Geico, something I know, something
Stare
that's not
at
scary.
my innocent lizard friend.
Yeah.
Limu, Emu, and Doug are here to comfort me.
Exactly. Oh, thanks, Jake from State Farm. I was real worried there. Good stuff. Good stuff. So yeah, Lake Mungo we will do in 2 weeks from now. But next week, season 1 of The Leftovers. With that, though, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT. And you can listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, where me and my brother Jams talk about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. Our latest episode is on But Ugly Martians.
What Ugly Martians? There you go.
A show I remembered nothing about except the title.
It's a pretty memorable I'm assuming it was in the 90s, right? Like late 90s.
It's like 2000, 2001. It is
okay, late 90s, early 2000s.
It is
that makes sense.
Unnerving to look at early CGI.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. If you guys want to stay up to date with me, I'm at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you guys want to follow all of the stuff that we do here at The Whatnauts, we are at The Whatnauts on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that stuff. But with that, this has been number 175 of The Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.